I want to come back to this whole self-defense concept. So let's be clear. Democratic critics to Bruce Blakeman's plan out in Nassau County. Democrat critics are alleging that the provisional deputies could be used to quell Black Lives Matter or pro-Palestinian protests. My response, yeah, that's what they should be used for, right?
Yeah.
Hello. So, but it still begs the question about self-defense, because what you're now going to see going through, and by the way, I think the Democrats are never going to have another convention in Chicago ever again, because apparently the protests that are planned by this pro-Hamas, pro-terrorist crowd for Chicago is going to be, you used the word off the rails. Apparently it's going to be quite significant, and let's see what happens there. I'm sure they'll protest the Republican as well, but
and think about that's in addition to all of the problems that they're having with the illegal immigrants and crime exploding. Yeah, it's good luck, y'all.
Right. But where, and I would love our listeners or somebody who's on Facebook to give us their insight into this, because I have the right to defend myself. How does that right transfer to my family, my community, my town, because the country, let's be candid here. The country was founded in part by the defense of local militia.
Yeah. Yeah. There was no standing army or police when the redcoats were coming.
Right. And I realize people are now associating local militia with the sort of right-wing, tinfoil hat wearing, crazy people, which is not accurate nor fair. But by demonizing them in advance, right, any act of self-defense is going to be blown out of proportion by the liberal media. And yet, do these people not have a right to defend their homes, their families? We've done our commercial on American exceptionalism, right? Your home, your church, your place of worship, right? You don't have and during the high holidays, at my temple, I used to be one of the guys that used to stand outside defending the temple in case something bad happened.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, when did we lose the right of self-defense is what I want to know.
I think as soon as the federal government started and local governments started infringing on our Second Amendment, once they started criminalizing self-defense, right? I mean, these duty to flee laws, as an example, if somebody breaks into your house, you are not allowed to defend yourself. You have a duty to flee, that if you can get away, you have to run away and let them take over your house. And
that's determined by whom?
I think
jury of my peers?
Yeah. You will get arrested. Like if you are in a duty to flee state, if someone enters your property, you shoot them, you will be arrested and you will be tried for defending yourself.
And do you want to know what my unfettered, unvarnished response to that is?
Do I need to get the censor button ready?
No, I'll behave. It's better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6.
That's right.
Sorry, guys, ladies. It makes me a little bit crazy. But
imagine, I had a conversation with a gal in Los Angeles when Benjamin and I lived out there, and she's from Connecticut originally. She's a lib, and she said, "Oh, you guys have weapons in your house?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Well, what would happen if somebody broke in?" And I said, "They would get shot. They would regret the day." And she goes, "Well, what if it's just somebody who's like sick and down on their luck?" And I said, "Well, it sucks to suck. I don't know what to tell you."
No, okay, but what if you're walking down the street and a giant safe falls from 50 stories on your head, right? What do you? I mean, it's the same. I mean, you can what if this to death, but we're talking about concepts here.
Well, and that's why I asked her.
The sanctity of your home, the right to self-defense, these inalienable rights. And inalienable rights, ladies and gentlemen, are supposed to be rights from God, not rights from government, right?
And that's what I asked her. I said, I said, are you
Where's my right
saying
to
that a
self-defense?
person? Oh, sorry. What's that?
No, I said, where's my? It's rhetorical. Where's my right to self-defense?
That's what I'm saying.
And where's the line?
And that's what I asked her. I was like, are you saying that I should allow someone to break into my house and hurt me and my family because they might be having a bad day? Like, what? I don't know. You have to be so soft and so comfortable and so disconnected from the reality of the insecurity of the world to like come to that conclusion.
So what are these flea laws you say? What are they called again?
It's called a duty to flee.
A duty to flee. So I would love Lord Benjamin to look up if there is a Republican state, or let's call it a red state, or a conservative state that has a duty to flee law, right? Because I would imagine that they don't. And by the way, if you live in a blue state and there is a duty to flee law, that explains why you're leaving. You should flee the state. Makes sense to me, right? That's why everybody's migrating out of Massachusetts, New York, California. Where are they going? They're going to the red states. But one proviso: do not make your new state into the type of state that caused you to leave your first state to begin with. Please,
Lord.
Right? It's like all these Massachusetts people are coming to New Hampshire, and all they're trying to do is affect laws that make us into sort of a Massachusetts-like state. But guys, that's why you left the state to begin with.
Oh, yeah.
You want to turn us into
states that have duty to retreat, a duty to retreat. I guess that's what it is. Connecticut,
I like
Delaware.
duty to flee better.
See if you can find the pattern here. Okay. Connecticut, Delaware, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, Rhode Island, Hawaii, Minnesota, Nebraska.
All flaming liberal states.
All and mostly from the Northeast. Almost.
Notice that New Hampshire is not on there.
Live free or die, baby.
Live free or die. It's an attitude, not a license plate, ladies and gentlemen. live free or die. All right. So, well, truth hurts. What can I tell you? Sometimes I feel like the Honorable Thomas Sowell, who just sort of speaks truth and doesn't really care about the ramifications of it.
Thomas Sowell, magical Negro. Okay, we were talking a few weeks ago.
He's a magical Negro.
The movie about magical Negroes. Thomas Sowell is definitely a magical Negro, just for the record. Okay.
Is this like Jack and the Beanstalk?
Yes.
Okay, if you plant it, they will come, or something. I don't know. Never mind. Let's move on.
Moving on.
Look, the appropriateness of the conversations. You're killing me. The appropriateness of the conversations to me of self-defense. This is the first day of Passover. Right. Right. And, there's a lot of things we could talk about in terms of the story, the lessons, the traditions, the rituals, the remembrance, the sort of defining of the Jewish people. But understand that at its core, Passover was an act of self-defense.
Oh, that's right.
And it was active self. And again, the story goes that they put the blood of the lamb over the doors of the Hebrews, and that God smite the firstborn of the Egyptians who were not, in protection of the Jews, right? In self-defense of the Jews, right? Now, I guess, you could parse words about, well, that wasn't really self-defense, but, and there's an argument there. But when you really understand one of the real true aspects is that it was an act of self-defense. It was an act of defiance as well, but it was an act of self-defense. So this concept is rooted in antiquity and in biblical times.
Yep. And it really was self-defense, because if they didn't do what they were told, which was to sacrifice a lamb and to put the blood over the door, I mean, that was the whole thing. They had to actually fulfill what was required of them to protect themselves. It'd be like, oh, I go get a gun, or I get a gun to protect myself, but then I don't pick it up to shoot it when somebody actually enters my house, So that really is self-defense.
It is self-defense. By the way, as a total sidebar, because we're talking about defense, and I still am, it's just incredulous to me that an American administration, let's take the D's or R's out of it, is currying support and favor with a pro-terrorist faction in this country that we've allowed to come here that chants death to America. So much so, did you hear that the State Department is about to sanction the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force? Now, they're not sanctioning the entire IDF. They're sanctioning a unit. If I can find all my paperwork, you know how I am. I mean, my desk by the end of the show, it looks like, skata. But that would be Greek, by the way, folks. So, U.S. to announce first sanctions against an IDF unit over West Bank actions, right? So, and it's allegedly for human, rights abuses committed in the West Bank, blah, blah, blah. But the fact that this administration is playing politics with a country that's at war to defend its existence, right? Let's go through the list, right? Bad enough that they called for the overthrow of the government. Bad enough that they didn't veto UN resolutions, right? Now, again, the juxtaposition of that is going to be, people are going to say, yes, but when Iran attacked, the U.S. came to Israel's aid along with Britain, along with Jordan, along with France and other countries to help them defend themselves. It's the same attitude towards these billionaires, funding, donors funding, these universities. Well, you guys helped create this to begin with. You better come to the defense, right? So it amazes me that we are now sanctioning. And again, of course, and by the way, the battalion that they're sanctioning isn't just Jewish, it's ultra-Orthodox, right? So war on religion knows no bounds. Now they're going to say, oh, no, they committed these abuses. Well, it's not up. I mean, when are you going to sanction Hamas? When are you going to sanction the PLO? When are you going to sanction Hezbollah?
When are you going to sanction? I mean, you could even think about anybody who's an ally of ours, that messes up. Did we sanction the Saudis for killing a journalist? Did we sanction anybody else for doing it? So I really feel like it, and I feel like this is what's the word? What ceremonial?
Double standard?
I'm trying to think of what's the right word. It's like pandering. Like,
of course,
are you just doing this for show, for your pro-Hamas wing of the party?
Ericka, let's be really clear. This is about staying in power, having enough votes to win an election, not alienating a community.
There cannot be, but there cannot be more pro-Hamas Americans. I just can't imagine.
It doesn't matter. Let me make this really clear for you and our listeners. Yeah. This election in November will turn on at most 7 or 8 states. One of those states is Michigan, which has a strong Muslim population. Remains to be seen how much of that population is pro-Hamas. I don't have those numbers, but there is already discussion, I guess within, let's call it the pro-Palestinian community in Michigan, that they cannot win election, they being the Biden administration. And again, they cannot win election if they do not win Michigan. Therefore, they must win Michigan. They have to win Pennsylvania as well, by the way. Right?
Yeah, but Pennsylvania's
But you're missing the point. Let's go back to the original premise here, and let's play this one more time. You have that Obama video? One more time, please.
One more time.
We are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
That's why they want to stay in power. That's why they will pander to this anti-America crowd. And I know they're going to say they're anti-Israel, but as we talked about in the monologue, it is impossible to be both anti-Israel and pro-U.S. And that's why you're hearing chants of death to America at these rallies. So under being hoisted on our own petard, we have let in under multiculturalism because we want to be thought by the world to be good people. And we're going to take your poor, your tired, your huddled masses, right? The Statue of Liberty, give us all of that. And we're not going to vet who comes into our country. And therefore, we now have them here. And they are important for the Democrats to get reelection to do what? to fundamentally transform America. I mean, are there dots here I'm not seeing?
Okay, I got a question, and I'm asking you to speculate here. Something that just came to my mind.
Do I need my tinfoil hat?
Yes, you do. Get it. Okay, so we know Israel, when it decides to assert itself, what was it, the 4-day war? What the heck was it called? The Yom Kippur War. Yeah, they also call it like the 3-day war or something like that?
Keep going. A little more than 3. How many?
5, 4, 5.
Come on.
7, 6?
Look it up. You just missed.
I'm trying to move on here. Dang it. Anyway, Israel could have knocked these guys out in 5 minutes if they wanted to. Is my point.
By the way, it's a 6-day war. The Yom Kippur War was a 6-day war, right? So
6-day war. Okay, so they could have wiped these fools out in 5 minutes if they wanted to, but they were asked by the United States to take their time and do whatever. So now it's
and by the way, clarification: the Yom Kippur War is different than a 6-day war. A 6-day war was in the 60s, but go ahead.
Okay, so we're now 6 months on or so, and we know that the American appetite for this kind of stuff is very short. We just got out of Afghanistan. We had all this crap going on. Americans don't want to be at war. So I almost wonder if they encourage the Israelis to go slower so that there would actually be more pushback against Israel, because it's now like making them look bad for longer. Did you track with me there?
Is there a question here?
Do you think is it possible you think they did that on purpose? Like this was an intentional way to make Israel look bad?
I think you're giving the administration far too much credit. Right. Yeah. I mean, look at 9/11, right? The country came together, and for a much longer period. I think what ended up happening is the brazen attacks and the brutal murder of, hundreds and hundreds, 1,300 or so Israelis, was such an animalistic act that it was impossible for an otherwise pro-Palestinian leaning administration to come down on any side other than be in support of Israel, at least short term. But as the drum beats roll and the protests roll and the threats of losing an election roll over the days, weeks, and months, and let's be honest, remember last show we went into how the head of the DEI, State Department's new DEI officer, calls America a failed experiment, and all the people that are in place within this administration that are clearly anti-Israel. And let's be really clear, especially when it comes to government, Ericka, people are policy.
Yeah.
Right. The people that you put in position are the ones that have to execute policy. And the people that they're putting into these positions are almost to a person anti-Israel. So it was inevitable that it started here and went over there. I don't think, I mean, to some extent, did the administration probably try to slow down Israel? Of course, because they were trying to get Israel not to go into Rafah for weeks and weeks and weeks. And that's the last stronghold of Hamas. Israel is fighting a war for its existence.
Great.
Again, to be clear. It's not the Israeli charter that calls for an extermination of a people. It's not the Israeli charter that calls, that uses kids as suicide bombers. It's not Israel that hides munitions in schools and hospitals and things like that. Right. So
that's right.
Again, it comes down to there is no moral equivalence here. But because of the protests in the streets, this administration is backpedaling really hard, except obviously in the attacks, Iran attacking Israel's soil. Yeah. They didn't have a choice there. So people are saying, oh, we came to Israel's defense. Crap. You didn't have a choice because you didn't have a choice. I mean, that was so far over the pale, but let's be clear that $6 billion or $10 billion and the unfreezing of ending of sanctions and unfreezing of assets emboldens your enemies. Iran is the enemy. Let's be not the Iranian people, all that stuff.
Oh, right. But here's the deal. How long ago was it? How long, like, what, last year? They gave him like billions of dollars back. A few months later, they're
do you not
freaking bombing
remember?
Israel.
Wait. And they're blaming Trump, who ended the Iran deal, and therefore it's Trump's fault. By the way,
What?
I have an ingrown toenail. I think that's Donald Trump's fault because, because Donald Trump's economy was so bad, there's no supply chain, and I couldn't get any nail clippers. I don't know. Everything in the world is Donald Trump's fault.
These people.
Everything.
Oh my God, how dishonest can you be?
I believe there's an
God.
expression that absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Absolutely.
Right. So
I'm going to hyperventilate. Seriously. Okay.
But
okay,
and
hold
let's
on.
not forget that back during the Obama administration, that remember that pallet, that huge pallet of billions of dollars was of cash onto a cargo plane in the middle of the night to Iran, but don't worry, they're not using it for any terrorist activities. How do you know? Are you there? Oh, or they gave you the insurances and they're trustworthy.
Oh,
there's a bridge. There's a bridge in Brooklyn, folks. I'd like to sell you. It's old, made of wood, but it's in really good condition.
It was probably built by socialists. So let's see how socialism is the big lie.